Yes, thank you, Ara. Thank you, family, for the joyous times such as this. But I'm not happy like this. I want to meet you all in physical. And Rakesh is telling that no, we will hold it. Basically, you don't want me to go home.
Soon Rakesh has given the permission to open the church, physical gathering.
Yes, so I'm soon coming.
Yeah.
Patience, everyone.
Hey, even if I pray to God, God will answer me immediately. But opening the church, getting permission from Rakesh, it's true.
So, even as we announced last Sunday, Joseph, that we'll be meeting in April. Even Jeru was just telling me now also sometime back, let's start in March only.
Yeah, kudos to Guru.
Every green single mil gaya.
It is making it sound like that, but it's not true.
God bless you, Didi.
So, Jose, you're live, by the way. So, yeah, you can start anytime you want.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just bring the screen share. Okay. I have shared in the month of Jan, last month, as we began this new year, about this topic on the exceptional life. And this is going to be part to it. And maybe we'll have a few more series of this coming when I share. The key focus which we brought about was from this verse, John chapter 10, verse 10. I know most of us know this verse by heart. It says that the enemy comes to steal, kill, and to destroy. But then I have come that you may have life and life in the abundance. The exceptional life is what God, as Jesus, has come to promise us. But then that verse as well forewarns us that there is an enemy who doesn't want us to enjoy this life. His intention is there only to steal, kill, and destroy. But whereas we know in Jesus, we have this abundance of life. So the enemy need not to come as a person. Enemy can come as circumstances in our own life, situations in our life, incidents in our life. And all those, if we are not watchful, it can put us into difficulties in that context. So we have looked through different situations in the intro, what I said. But then this is what I would say that this is what we have looked at as the truth about life. God has promised an exceptional life for all of us. Now, this is a statement which we need to accept. All of us need to accept. This is open for all of us. And we must believe and act on God and his promises to live this exceptional life. God, require us to act and to take hold of this promise in our situations to enjoy this exceptional life. The third focus is the life's greatest lessons are learned in the midst of life's greatest struggles. I'm sure that, if I ask you to raise your hands, that many hands will go up in this context, agreeing to the statement. Life's greatest lessons are learned in the midst of life's greatest struggles. And the last one is there is plenty of life that I can't handle. I know if we look at the challenges sometime the life throw at us, we will come under, we will get crushed under it because we can't. But then it says that, but God and I can handle anything. We know once God is for us, who can be against us? We hold on to this verses. And with my God, I can bend a bow bronze. That is what it says, that I'm with God with us, and we being with God, we in partnership with God. We know that the situations can be different in that context. So this morning, as we come to look at the word for us for this day, living the exceptional life when life tells you run. This yet again a possibility in many of our life. The key verse which I taken is from Esther chapter 4 verse 14. That's again a familiar verse, and we had a camp with the theme being this verse. So we have looked at it and we saw, and it was in the midst of the pandemic, and we saw, and God has called us for such a time as this. That's what we have looked at, and we know we will come into that, or I would read that verse for us for chapter 4 verse 14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this. So this is the key verse. You can tuck it in the back of your mind as we go forward. It's 10:40. Hope I will be able to finish it on time by 11:30. If not, please forgive me if I go a little overstretch. So today we want to look at this exceptional life, and again looking at another angle when life throws up, a predicament which imply to us run. That may be a situation which we may go through in our own life. We know that when we look at in the midst of this pandemic, we are seen, we heard, we read that, what is the serious fallout of joblessness. If people are out of work or without a job, they can't provide basic necessities for their families. They risk losing their homes and even go through profound psychological effects. I have gone through a time such as this in my life for about 2 years. I know you must have heard me tell this time and again. 2 years without job. I was without job for 2 years, and I was restless and I was emotionally drained. I almost lost my confidence to face life. I know it's pretty challenging when we go through situations like that. So I just wanted to, I know you will get to hear a few stories this morning, which is not usual of me, but I wanted to build up this theme with a few stories. Though I say the story, these are all real incident which has happened, and which I'm sure that will help grasp the intent of this title. So this story goes back to 1940s. This story is about a young man who faced a similar situation of joblessness. His name is James Merritt. He was a graduate in accounting and was looking for a job, and nothing was coming in his way. Months went by without a single interview or phone call of interest. But finally, he got a call for interview with one of the most prestigious bank in US. It was a dream job for an entry-level employee could dream. The salary was more than expected, and it also had a promise that they will put him on a fast-track progress to the VP if he worked hard. So he got ready. So he went through the rounds. I know I don't need to tell you about the rounds of interviews these days people are pushed to. And he went through all the, tests, IQ tests and EQ tests and all that he went through. And finally, they told that you have been shortlisted to go for the final round of interview. And they forewarned him that the final interview, he would be asked only one question and his answer would determine his future. It required only an yes or no answer. There will be one question and you just need to answer it with an yes or no. So he got ready for the final round and he reached the place, and a younger man with a pleasant expression greeted him at the door and ushered in. They both seated and got into a casual talk and exchanged pleasantries. And the conversation finally reached the point he was looking for, the final question. And this was the final question. That man who was interviewing put across to him this question: is it fair for me to assume that your number one priority in life will be to make money for this bank and in the process make as much money for yourself as possible? This was a question to which he has to answer. I will read the question once again. Is it fair for me to assume that your number one priority in life will be to make money for this bank and in the process make as much money for yourself as possible? And this was not the question he was expecting. He sat there thinking through his answer. He realized that he was about to determine his career path and financial future. And most importantly, he was about to determine his number one priority in life. He took a deep breath and he answered like this: no, sir, that would not be my first priority. My number one priority is and always will be to glorify God with my life and to cultivate a personal relationship with Him. My family comes second, and any job I'm given will always fill the third spot. There was silence. Finally, the VP looked up, put down his pen and stood up and said thank you and led him out. He was disappointed because he couldn't get the job. So he walked out dejectedly and remained unemployed with no other prospects. A sense of failure hung over his head with the mounting dues of student loan and other commitments. But he also knew he had faced the defining moment of his life and faced it with honesty and courage. That was a discovery which he had and which sustained him. That, this was a defining moment of his life and he faced it with honesty and courage. And that's what we want to look at this morning, the defining moment of our life. And how do we respond to situations in our life when they are what is going to make us or break our life, or make us to run or stand in the midst of that. And after all the dust is settled, find us still standing because we decided to stand for God in the defining moments of our life. All human, having said that, I wanted to make the statement: life is tough for all of us. All of us experience tough times. This is my favorite quoting. I say I quoted many a times. Don't ever expect life to be a straight line. Life will take you through twists and turns. Life will take you through ups and downs. Life will throw at you surprises which you least expected, and that also when you are least expecting, and the time and situations all can turn out to be that something which we never expected in our own life. But exceptional trials define us as individuals, or as a response, not only determine the outcome of the situation, but also the trajectory of our life. The way we respond to these defining moments in our life determine the trajectory of our life. Sometimes it happens that if we are not heeding to the trajectory through the defining moments God bringing into our life, it could be that we choose our own trajectory that could be quite disastrous for our own life. And many times it is important for us to realize and understand that these defining moments is what makes us who we are. And unfortunately, we are often unprepared for such difficulties in our own life. You can Google out the second story yet again. You can Google out for an article titled 178 Seconds to Live. You Google out 178 Seconds to Live, you will get this small clip of video. It's about the results of 20 pilots training in a flight simulator. All of them were skilled aviators, but had not taken the instrument training. As long as the weather was good, they were all experts in flight and had no trouble operating the plane. But when they were placed in a simulator and asked to keep their plane under control as they flew through simulated clouds and bad weather, their performance sank. All 20 pilots lost control of their planes and crashed in an average time of 178 seconds. It is less than a commercial out of 3 seconds, or just about a commercial art's time. It says that all 20 pilots crashed their plane because they couldn't control their plane in a coordinated simulator atmosphere of clouds and turbulence. The results showed that while they were capable of keeping the plane afloat in good weather, they couldn't survive 3 minutes in poor conditions. Sometimes that could be true about us. When life seems to be going our way, we are good at making decisions and managing our hiccups. But when condition worsens, we find ourselves ill-equipped to respond, and we are tempted to run away. Even if life's atmosphere seems turbulent-free, we need to be prepared for rough weather, because difficulties in life will come, and often the way you and I respond will place you on a course that will shape the rest of your life. Having said that, I want you to look through some thoughts to ponder for us as we progress. All of us experience tough time. Adversity is a divine appointment. Behind the curtain of our difficulties, God may be up to something. God has not put any of us solely for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others. If you ever think that you have your life lived for yourself, your own satisfaction and your own happiness, I want to tell you upright on your face, that is not God's purpose. That is not what God has made you and created you for. God plans and purpose through you is the benefit of others. God often uses what appears to be the worst thing to bring the best in you. I know these are the things which somehow we don't want to ponder. How can the bad thing happen to me for the good? We know what happened to Joseph. Joseph made the statement, though you intended for my harm, all these things, the sum total of what he has gone through, but they said, but then God has done it all for the good of me and bring me to the position where I am. Sometimes we need to rest and relax when we go through adversity, when we face these challenging, defining moments in our life, and realize, though it seems to be the worst thing happened to my life, but then it may be that God wants to bring the best out of me through this situation. I want to encourage you. I want to, encourage you to think in this way. You may be in the midst of a storm. You may be facing the toughest challenges of your life. You may be in the worst situation could ever happen in your life. You may be facing that in your life. But if you, instead of running away from it, if you are able to face these defining moments in your life, I want to assure you, God may bring the best out of you through these situations. So don't ever give up. Tough situations will come, but only tough people will last. I know this again, I have shared many a times in the late 80s, in my early walk with the Lord. I read this book, when going get tough, the tough gets going. When the going get tough, the tough gets going. I want to encourage you, when the life become tough for you, when the life throws up tough situations and circumstances in your life, you are dependent ought to be on God to make you tough to face those situations and overcome and allow God to bring the best in your life. Okay, having said that, I wanted you to listen to this quote of Winston Churchill. He said that there comes a special moment in everyone's life, a moment for which that person was born. That special opportunity, when he seizes it, will fulfill his or her mission, a mission for which he is uniquely qualified. In that moment, he finds greatness. It is his or her finest hour. If you are facing a challenge, if you are facing your defining moment in your life, I want to tell you that you may be in for an ultimate test of your life in the present, and the way you decide is going to make it out to be whether it's going to be the finest hour of your life when you respond rightly to God and to God's purpose. Now, having said that, what are we looking at? How the story unfolding. We read from Esther chapter 4, verse 14, but I just want to tell you what is the unfolding story of this book of Esther. This is a story of a courageous young woman who faced her finest hour and stood tall in the midst of it. If her story was not in the Bible, you would have reason to presume it to be the work of a screenwriter. But Hollywood's best would have a challenge in matching the incredible drama of the story. The story is packed with suspense, mystery, deceit, treachery, murder, romance, and a thrilling climax of conclusion as well. It's the story of Esther, the queen. Though her language and culture is separated from us, the lesson she teaches us is like a hot take for us to take it in. The way she handled adversity in her life made the king to take a 180-degree turn, issue a new edict, and millions of people in 127 countries had their lives spared. And today, the Jews celebrate this memory by the name the Feast of Purim, a celebration which commemorates how this incredible woman faced tough time and when the dust settled, remained standing. And it says that during the feast, the Jews assemble in synagogues and read her story publicly. Then they exchange gifts, feast, and rejoice at what God did through the magnificent Lady Esther. To cut the story short, King Xerxes was the ruler of that time in the Persian Empire. He was the most powerful ruler of his time, extending his empire from modern-day India to Ethiopia. However, power does not translate into good decision-making, right? We know even it is happening in our own times, in our own surrounding. Power does not translate into good decision-making. For he chose the wrong woman as his aide, wrong man as his aide, and the wrong woman as his wife. And we know the story of Queen Vashti. She refused to appear when the king called for, and she fell, and she was deposed of her position due to the disrespect she shown to the king. Realizing not just any woman will do, the king advisors put on a national Miss Persia contest to find a new queen. That was their interest. And Mordecai put Esther into contest and asked her to keep her identity a secret. No Jewish woman would be allowed to become the queen. Amazingly, against all odds, Esther wins and she becomes the queen of Persia. Her coronation was God's preparation for confrontation. Esther's coronation as a queen was God's preparation for confrontation. And as we read chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, he has selected this man, Haman, to be his aide and advisor and the prime minister. And we know that he was the number one advisor to the king. He had the ear of the king, now being the prime minister of Persian Empire. And again, I wanted to make this statement. Power sometimes tends to corrupt the people who hold the power. Having made the prime minister, this man wanted everyone to bow down before him. In spite of having his position and power, he wanted every citizen of his country to bow down to him. And we know the story. Mordecai, being a Jew, refused to do it. And every time Mordecai and Haman met in the street, it became a test for Mordecai whether he would stand on his conviction or surrender to the pressure to compromise and bow down to this man. And this has developed such hatred in Haman's life towards Mordecai as an individual and also towards Jews as a whole community or group of people who are living in that nation. And he somehow wanted to eliminate this group of people. He knew, rather than eliminating this one man Mordecai, what I will look for is to eliminate the entire race. And we know it appears to be the end of the line for God's people, but with God, it is not over till it is over. With God, it's not over till it is over. And the plot thickens. And he even planned to hang Mordecai. And he has spoken to the king and got an edict signed with the signet ring of the king, that this edict to be sent to all provinces, that the non-Jews can capture and kill and annihilate the entire Jewish people. And that has become the point of pain for the Jewish people. Mordecai got alarmed and he don't know what to and how to respond into this. And that's where the defining moment for Esther comes. For it has come to the point, one thing that stands between Jews and complete annihilation, between evil triumphing and prevailing, is Jewish girl named Esther. She is the only person who can change the mind of the king and turn the tide from tragedy to triumph. No one can pull the rank over the prime minister in the court of the king except the queen. Haman may have the ear of the king, but the queen, when it comes to the queen, she had both ears and the king's eyes. It says the word Esther means star, which seems fitting in the hindsight. This defining difficulty is about to give Esther a chance to shine. And knowing this, Mordecai plays the trump card and he tells Esther she must go to the king and plead for the life of her people. But we know, as you know, this is a defining moment and she resists, knowing that if she does that, what Mordecai tells her to do, she will be putting her life on the line. Chapter 4, verse 11, it reads like this. All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that any man or woman who appears or approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that he be put to death. The only exception to this is for the king to extend the gold scepter to him and spare his life. But 30 days have passed since I was called to the great king. No one, not even the queen, had an open door to the king. Every appearance before the king was through a written request. Even then, the king had to hold out the golden scepter to show his approval, or the penalty was instant death. So Esther's moment has arrived. A reminder once again that tough times are when the toughest battles on our life are won or lost. These are the toughest moments in our life, and I'm sure that we also will face the toughest times in our own life. Sometimes it may be about our own marriage and marriage vow. Do we work those problems out to finish, or just call a lawyer for divorce? Or it could be sometime about an unexpected pregnancy. Have the baby or take the easy, convenient way out and condemn an innocent child to death. It could be any situation which you and I can face as a defining moment in our own life. It may be a defining moment for you to speak up when the truth is at stake, or when someone's welfare is in a balance, or you shut up and protect your own interests. Navigating through turbulence is not an easy task. Esther now faces a choice. She could turn a blind eye to the peril of her people, or rise to her destiny and risk everything to spare her people. To seize the moment and see it as her opportunity to do the right thing, say the right thing, and be the right person, or to live or to die. And Mordecai, her uncle, knew, because of his wisdom and understanding, that Esther faces the decision of her lifetime. And at this point of time, Mordecai makes one of the most life-changing statements in the Bible, which I read some time back. Esther chapter 4, verse 14. We say that, and who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this. And who knows? He reminds Esther that because of her Jewishness, she will wind up dying like everyone else. But even if she doesn't step up, God is never limited to only one option. He will raise up someone else to accomplish his purpose. And Mordecai's closing question was like pouring cold water on her face. And who knows, but you have come to royal position such a time as this. It's a defining moment for Esther, her finest hour. And as Mordecai hints, behind her tough time, God was up to something. And like Esther, I want to encourage you, all of us, that we often forget that sometimes adversity is a divine appointment. Behind the curtain of our difficulties, God may be up to something. What difficulty are you facing right now? Or what difficulty are you taking advantage of? Have you considered that you are being put in this place in this moment for such a time as this? You are not an accident. You are an appointment. Life is not about coincidence. It's about providence. Why are you here? What are the priorities of your life? Why were you born at this point of time, in this place in the world, with the abilities and giftedness you have. Your purpose in life is not purely individualistic. The calling on your life always involves others. Want to tell you yet another story, an incident which happened in World War II. This British soldier called Ernest Gordon was a prisoner of war with Japanese military, and he was in the Japanese prison camp. And these POWs, that is prisoner of wars, were forced to build a railroad of death for transporting Japanese soldiers to the battlefront. And they say the soldiers in charge, the one who was in charge of over them, tortured and starved the prisoners while forcing them to work long hours. And he says that more than 15,000 died, but somehow God survived Gordon. After the war, Gordon wrote a book titled Through the Valley of Kwai. And he tells the story about the soldiers. One day after the day's work ended, the soldiers were counting the tools at the end of the day and announced that there is one shovel was missing. An investigation began to uncover which prisoner stole the shovel. Finally, the soldier has ordered that whoever has done the crime must step forward and take the punishment. No one came forward, and the soldier became furious and angry, and that made him to be more angry, and he shouted, "If no one is owning up, all of you will die, all die, all die." And he cocked the rifle and aimed at the prisoners. And he wrote in his book, at that moment, one man stepped forward and quietly said, "I did it." The soldier clubbed the prisoner to death in front of all his friends. In horror, his friends carried his lifeless body. And while this is happening, the guards recounted the shovels in the tool shed, and there was none missing. Actually, they found out that there's no shovel missing. That means this man who stepped forward and said, "I did it," he was owning up the defining moment for his life, for the moment for which he was born, and owned up the crime to be tortured and killed in that moment of time in saving the rest of his friends. The man who laid down his life for his friends knew what the rest of us often forget. God has not put any of us solely for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others. This man, by stepping forward and owning up, was making the benefit for others of his life. That he was not born for solely for himself, but it was to save the others. It was to be the benefit and blessing of others, and that's what it happened. In the family, husband and wives are to love and cherish and enable their spouses to be the best people they can be. Parents have a primary responsibility of rearing their children to become responsible adults. In the workplace, major purpose of the boss is to enable encourage and equip his employees to be the best workers they can be. That's why it says that no man is an island. We exist for others. I know you may not be a queen in a palace or a king on a throne. Perhaps your life focus may be a school or a home or a hospital or maybe a cubicle. Regardless, it is a sphere of influence and you have not been placed there by random chance. If you exist there to influence and impact others. When you forget yourself and risk everything for the benefit of someone else, you have the opportunity to shine like star God created you to be. Esther realizes that Mordecai is right. She has come to her royal position for such a time as this. Avoiding the situation is not an option. Swallowing hard, she puts her life in God's hand and goes to the king. I don't know if you ever noticed, Esther is the only book in the Bible where God is never mentioned. Yet, the book of Esther has found a place in the set of books assembled together to be called as the Bible. Have you ever thought of why or how God himself chose to leave his name completely out of it? This is the reason. You can be rest assured that even when you can neither see or sense God in a difficulty you are in, God is truly beside you. God is truly around you, above you, and within you. You know the famous portrait which adorns many homes of the prayer, footsteps. It's called footprints. And the difficulty came when he turned and looked. He could see only, he thought it was his own book, footprints. But he said, no, it was me. You are being carried during that difficult period of time. That's why we need to realize, God, if you are in a difficult situation, if you are facing your defining moment in your life, and if you feel like running away, I want to assure you, and because you can't see God, we can't sense God, we can't see his presence, his love, anything of that. If you are challenged by those, I want to tell you, God is truly beside you, around you, above you, and within you. Nothing ever happens by coincidence. It always occurs under the hand of the providence. Queen Vashti's disobedience was not just a coincidence, and neither was the king's decision to dispose her. Esther becoming the queen, despite of thousands of other women who competed with her, was not a result of pure chance. God was working the whole time to light up Esther the star, so she could shine. God was preparing Esther the star to shine in that defining moment of her life for which she was created. It may be the same for you. You may be facing your defining moment, but then God expects you to choose the trajectory he wants you to be walking on. And we know the story goes further. Esther calls the king for a banquet to make things a little light this morning. And you know what happened after Esther called the king for a banquet? The king couldn't sleep. King couldn't sleep that night. He was dreaming about Esther's banquet. What tandoori chicken and what kebab she may be preparing. I want to tell you, wives who are listening to me this morning, I think you can give your husband sleepless night if you prepare a banquet like this. If you want your husband to lose sleep in the night, I would say that call out for a banquet, especially for the husband, and I'm sure it can happen this way. And this led to the discovery of king honoring Mordecai for his valiant effort to save the king's life in the past. Now he was sleepless, and he called for the treasury records and asked them to read. Somebody read this incident about. I said, what has been done to this man who saved the king's life? Nothing. Then what should be done? He said, this should be done. And that moment Haman walks in, he asked Haman what should be done. Haman thought about himself, because such time people think about themselves. He said, thinking that the king is going to honor him, he said, what all could be done to this man who saved the king's life? And king tells Haman, go and do this to Mordecai. It was like insult to injury for Haman. Now, we see the superstar Esther begins to burn bright. She tells the king of Haman's plot and wickedness, and then king issues a new edict. The king then issues an edict allowing Jewish people to defend themselves, and the Jewish nation spared. Thereafter, Haman was hanged. Mordecai moves into the palace to become the prime minister, and the king and Esther goes for a second honeymoon, and the story moves on in that manner. This gives us the reminder of just how important defining difficulties are when we are faced with. We are told to shut up when we should speak up, stay out when we should stay in, or sit down when we should stand up. And Esther teaches us that the cost of standing is less than the price of surrendering. We need to receive it. We need to receive it with humility and humbleness. Don't allow yourself to be broken. Bending is an option which is there for us, and which will help us to stand up after the storm is over. God's exceptional life is for those who are willing to take a stand against the enemy by prioritizing the focus of their life. It will cost you to take a stand, but through your stand, you open up the channel of God's blessing into your life and situations. When we don't stand up to our defining moments in life and reorder the priorities of our life, it could be that we are choosing a comfortable trajectory for life that may be far, far away from God's plan for our own life. God's trajectory may be painful in the present. God's trajectory, you may feel it as if you have been humiliated and defeated. But I want to tell you, if you choose God's trajectory, which God has planned for your life, God will honor you, and that will indeed open the floodgates of heaven's blessing into your life. I want to honestly tell that I have faced many defining moments in my life. One of the defining moments and willing and choosing to put my life on God's trajectory is what makes me to stand before you. I was at the crossroads as to what to do with my life. It was a defining moment for me where I said yes to the Lord to follow through His trajectory for our life as a family. And that makes me to speak in this manner before you. But I also want to confess before you that I could not stand up to every defining moments in my life. There are defining moments in my life where I failed and for which I faced the consequences. But my encouragement to you this: if you're willing to accept the trajectory God has for your life, it will lead to greater blessing in your life, that God make you to shine like star for Him in the days to come. And we saw the final victory which is coming in Esther and Mordecai's way and the way of the Jewish people. They have experienced victory because Esther was willing to face the defining moment of her life. And it's the same for you and me. If you are facing the defining moment of your life, if it requires you to humble yourself, if it requires that you be looked down, or maybe you may look small in the context of the situation, I would say accept it. It may be God's plan for your life to shine, make you shine bright, and to release God's blessing unending into your life. God has made us not exclusively for individualistic reasons. We need to know that someone's blessing is linked with us. And if we are not allowing that blessing to flow through us, it's that we are choosing a different life trajectory for our life, which may end up total failure of our life. We will regret all the life through. So don't allow that to happen for you as you hear me this morning. So what is the gleaning which you can receive or take to this morning through this message? It says this: we must not succumb to circumstances when it comes to our priority of life. We need to understand what is the priority. Like the man who faced the defining moment to say what is his priority for life. We need to know. We should not be only thinking about when life is going smooth and nice and fine, I'm good. No. Those 20 pilots were experts to fly the plane in normal atmospheric conditions. But then when their plane was been forced to go through difficulties, they couldn't handle the plane and caused loss of life and their own life. We need to realize that concerning about us as well. We are not called to be living smiley life when everything is fine and well and good. We are called to stand up even in the face of fiercest storms which will hit us. We should be able to go by the trajectory which God has for us. Don't rebel against God's trajectory for your life, even if you don't see God in the scene. You may have an excuse. No, I can't see. God will not allow me to go through these kind of situations. I don't think it's God's choice for me to go through this. No. When you can't see God as well, you need to know that God is at work in your life and situation. The cost of standing is less than the price of surrendering. And finally, if you still don't understand, I want to tell you, the cross was the Father's trajectory for Jesus to save you and me. Jesus also has to struggle with. He said, Lord, if it is possible, let this cup be moved away, but it is not my will, but your will be done. If Jesus was willing to go through the trajectory the Father had for him to be on the cross for you and me, do you find it difficult to go through the trajectory God has for you in your life, in the tough situations you are facing? Maybe in your marriage, maybe in your workplace, maybe in your financial situations, maybe in your relationship with somebody else. The cross was the Father's trajectory for Jesus to save you and me. If Jesus embraced the trajectory Father had for him to be on the cross, it is not just on the cross. We know what led him to the cross: the persecution, the insult, the rejection, the loneliness, the discouragement, the pain and agony, and all that which part of that trajectory Jesus has to travel through. And he traveled it willingly for your sake and for my sake. Shouldn't we be willing to travel on God's trajectory to glorify God through our life? It may be anything to do with the defining moments of our life. It may be to do with our work. It may be to do with the number one priority of our own life. It may be to do with our marriage. It may be to do with our children. It may be to do with the financial situation we are facing. But I want you to tell you, if you choose the defining moment to flow through the trajectory which God has for you and for your life, like Esther did, like Jesus did, there
Please
will
hold
be
it.
a blessing unending coming in your way. Reflection and response this morning. All of us experience tough time. Don't ever brush it aside. No. All are enjoying life. This tough time has only come for me. Every marriage goes through tough times. Every family, parents go through tough time on account of their children. Every one who works in situations have to face tough situations in their workplace. We all go through financial struggles and difficulties. It could be to do with anything, maybe to do with the pregnancy. I know we have people in our midst who are overcome the defining moment in their life and enjoying their little child at this point of time. How they stood, made it as a defining moment for their life to, stand the test. Be willing to travel on the trajectory God planned for your life. Remember, the cost of standing is less than the price of surrendering. Allow your defining moments to rebuild and reconstruct your faith. Maybe this defining moment has come in your way to make you strong in your faith, to rebuild and reconstruct your faith. Maybe you have been little, weak in this area of trusting God and putting his faith in God. It may be allowed to rebuild and reconstruct your faith for his glory and honor. So as I close this morning and pray, I want to ask you, are you willing to stand before God with the defining moments you're facing and receive it with your open hands? Lord, I'm ready for it. I know that you will be with me. I know it's going to be painful. I know it's going to be humiliating. Lord, I know it appears to be that, a failure for me in my life. But Lord, no, it's okay. Lord, I'm wanting to take it for my life. Lord, I'm ready for it. I'm ready to put my life on your trajectory that I may be made to shine like a star for you, for the blessing and benefit of others. Can I ask you, encourage you to converse with God with your situation at this point of time and seek God's help and kindness to you to stand in the midst of the storm, to stand and not to break in the midst of this defining moment you are seized within your life. I want to tell you, assure you, God's promised blessing of abundant life, the exceptional life, will be for you this morning as you choose rightly. I give you a moment to decide rightly with regards to your defining moment in your life before I cross. Father, we want to thank you this morning. Thank you for the defining moments you have brought us into in our life. We want to acknowledge, Lord, these defining moments are to test, are a test of our character, whether we will break or whether we will stand, whether we will honor you or where we will denounce you, whether we will run away from life and the difficulties or face it, though painful, face it and overcome it. For no man is an island. We exist for the blessing of others in marriages, as parents, as colleagues, in every situation. Lord, we know you called us to be a blessing. I pray at this point of time for everyone who heard me this morning and lifting up their defining moment, challenging moment before you. Pray, Lord, that you will not fail any of them as they stand up, as they put their life, a willingness to travel on the trajectory which you are for their life. May your purpose be fulfilled through them, and may your glory be revealed through them as you make them shine like a star for you. And to that, Lord, we commit all of us. In Jesus' name we pray.